Hello, and welcome to Seeking Heaven, the Near Death Experience, and Other Phenomena. I'm your host, Tamara Caulder Richardson, an evidential psychic medium and Christ channeler. Welcome. Today, we have an exciting guest and also a good friend, someone who's very special. And they're coming all the way from the UK, and that would be Leo Bonomo. Let me tell you a little bit about Leo. Leo is a fabulous clairvoyant medium, and he trained 8 years in the evidential style of mediumship, much like me. I really admire his work, and he just won a prestige award for 2021 2022 for Clairvoyant Medium of the Year, and that is a UK award. He's also very heavily involved with other associations, the Spirituals Association. He's certified member of ASSMPI, ISSMPI, the American Standards of Mediumship. He is an author of 3 books. He also is a radio podcaster, and he is a teacher of mediumship. And today he is here to talk to us about his new book, The Voice of Spirit, about direct voice communication, which is a very rare phenomena with mediumship. So welcome, Leo.
Hi. Just going to adjust the camera a little bit there. Brilliant. It's lovely to be here, and thank you so much. Lovely introduction.
Oh, well, I tell you what, I think the world of you. And we've actually done some mediumship together on my channel. And you can
Yes.
see the 3, what is it, the 3 mediums or something? It's down below. You can look and see we did a little something. And we're going to, at some point, it's just been hectic for both of our lives. We're going to do something more. But today, I know you put a lot of passion and a lot of effort into this research that you have that in the Voice of Spirit about this phenomenon with direct voice. Now, one thing I want you to explain that, but I also want to tell everybody first, this is rare. Not all mediums are the same. There are higher level things that certain ones can do as far as ability. And I want you to tell everybody kind of what direct voice is and what that involves. And then maybe tell us about this journey before you wrote the book, how you discovered all of this, because I think it's a fascinating story.
Yeah. When people have ideas of mediums, they tend to think of mediums, maybe tarot readers. They tend to think of mediums like you and I, clairvoyant mediums. But there are lots of different types of mediums, and physical mediums. They're the ones in which you would talk in historic terms of a séance, where people would appear. That's physical phenomena. Trance mediumship is physical phenomena. So there's a whole sphere of them. One of them that is fairly rare and certainly not known by the general public is direct voice mediumship. And what that involves is spirit takes ectoplasm. Ectoplasm is in the pancreas. It's made up from 5 or 6 different chemicals. And what spirit do is they extract those and they mix them and they make ectoplasm. And ectoplasm's extruded from the body, so it comes out of all the orifices, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, sex organs as well. And it can take various forms, and one form it can take is kind of liquid, and it will pool on the floor. And for example, someone coming through from spirit will form that into a likeness of themselves, and walk around the room speaking, and they actually feel quite solid and warm. They don't feel ghost-like. With direct voice mediumship, the ectoplasm is taken out and they form a copy of the human vocal cords.
Mhm.
And on top of that, they place a mask. The technology is slightly different now. They have scientists over there, so it's always developing. But they make a mask, and what the spirit does is place their face in the mask, and they send thoughts into it, and the thoughts come out as a voice. Now, with Leslie Flint, he was so good at it that he used to sit in light like we're sitting now in a room, and the voice box was actually in spirit invisible, but the voice appeared 6 or 7 inches underneath the ceiling, maybe 5, 10 feet away from Leslie himself. And the wonderful thing about that is, as they project their voices, their thoughts into the mask, you can physically hear people speaking, like you and I are speaking, and often very, very intelligently. And they come to tell their stories about their lives, their passing, what they felt when they passed. There's no pain, as we know. Their first experiences, if you like, of landing or being in spirit, and their experiences in spirit, what they like to do, because there are lots of jobs, for example. Now, we're not talking about normal day-to-day jobs. The jobs involve spiritual things. So, for example, you may want to help abandoned children that have passed over, or you want to learn about, from a spirit side, you want to learn about surgery, or you want to read books, or you want to play an instrument. So there are lots and lots of different things that we can do. And they talk about those aspects of life and what they're doing. And really their journey from maybe a care home where they've recuperated, and they talk about their journey through spirit and where they got to, up to the point of speaking through this phenomena. It's Leslie Flint is very unusual from the point of view that normally if there's a connection, if you do a reading, there's always a connection between you and the person. The interesting thing is spirit got together and they asked for individuals of all different backgrounds to come together purely to give evidence in that way. So it's a startling thing altogether.
Now, how did you experience this? How did you first find out about it? And didn't you kind of accidentally, you were invited to something, or how did this? Yeah. Can you tell that story?
Absolutely. I was a member of the SAGB, Spiritualist Association of Great Britain, and I trained there for over 8 years, as you've said. And I had some friends there, and they said to me, would you like to come and see and experience a direct voice medium, Leslie Flint? Well, at that time, I'd never heard of Leslie. But I'm game for anything. So I thought, new experience, go for it. And I went and sat, and there was a couple of startling things about it. We sat in the room in light. Leslie, unlike other physical mediums, was completely awake, speaking to us. And then Mickey, his guide, came through, and the sound is quite loud. Sometimes it sounds amplified, but it's not. It's just very clear from spirit. And Mickey introduced himself, and then he said to me, "Hello, Leo."
Oh, you're kidding. Really?
He spoke to me first. I was just happy to witness and think, interesting. But he spoke to me first, and he was talking about some various things, which later transpired in me helping Leslie and the collaboration with this book. But he spoke to me, and the interesting thing was, spirit can't take away free will. So he said, I just want to say something. And somebody beside him obviously interrupted him. And you could hear him saying, am I allowed to say that? And then quite often when you hear the voices, he turns away and you can hear where they're all whispering. And then he turned back to me and he said, I can't tell you anymore. And so I'm not one of those people that's really inquisitive and I've got to know. So I accepted it, but I thought that's interesting. And then somebody else, Dr. Charles came through, and there were other speakers, but the experience absolutely blew me away. Not only had I never known of that, but just to be addressed first.
So you were in there let me show a picture of Leslie Flint.
Yes.
So you were, I guess because he's now passed.
Yeah.
On the other side, he's crossed over, and you got to actually be with the famous Leslie Flint.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
He was the most prolific direct voice medium in his time. In his time, he was the most tested by all kinds of scientists. People used to say, well, he's throwing his voice. So he had a microphone on his throat. Never ever proved a fake at all. And he led an incredible life, obviously.
I've got some images here. Maybe you could explain to people. This is crazy. You're talking about testing.
Yeah.
Is that they're taping his mouth shut?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes they would introduce a liquid, and you know what it's like. If somebody puts a sweet in your mouth, or a biscuit, and says, "Don't swallow," you you can't not. But sometimes these sessions would go on for an hour, and he was still expected to hold a coloured liquid in his mouth.
So they would, this is one, and they would put liquid so that way when he would talk, there's no way he could talk with a liquid. He had this. And
Yeah.
then there's another photo that I have here of him in front. He's in a booth.
Yes.
Explain that one.
Right. So when you do physical mediumship, sometimes you need a container for the ectoplasm and the power to build up. So
Okay.
this is a wooden one. It looks like it's easily transportable because there's screws and wing nuts on there. But it can also take the form of a tent. And the only reason that that's there is to contain the ectoplasm and build up the power.
Okay.
This is something, as you can see there, that Leslie did live. He would often be enclosed in that. And this was due as much to the conditions in a theatre. He needed something. When you've got a lot of ectoplasm about, as you know, buildings and fabrics can contain energy. You can go into a place and it just doesn't feel right. So
Right.
that itself is very important. So what it is it acted as it contained a residue of that energy. So that's why he did that on platform.
Right.
Um,
And the
there are
mics are outside the box, right?
the lights are outside the box, and there's just that microphone there. He would probably have been taped up again,
Like
but
that.
yeah. But when I saw Leslie, it was in daylight, which up to then was unknown. There's interesting
Wow.
stories about him because he's always thrown his voice, and there's a recording which I can't get hold of. But there are 7 or 8 people in spirit all talking together, which is some feat if you're throwing your voice, apparently. So all these are talking together, and Leslie's joining in.
Wow.
So
So there's more than
each
one voice.
there. Sorry.
More than one voice all
Yeah,
talking.
there's 7 or 8 people all talking together, holding a conversation in spirit, which everyone could hear, and Leslie was joining in. And when I saw him, he was talking to Mickey and talking to people as well.
Well, now what is this last image of? What is the what do you know what they're trying to do here or no?
This is an experiment. There are some scientists there. They're filming him in red light because ectoplasm can usually be very easily harmed. It's not something that should be touched. Ectoplasm itself is black, but they can introduce colours and then colour the ectoplasm. So when you go and sit in a physical séance, you can see the people and you can see ectoplasmic lights. It's a beautiful thing.
You know, you should not touch someone when they're in trance and when they're doing that with the ectoplasm because it can actually injure them. You're not supposed
Yeah,
to, and
yeah,
that's why if you notice a lot of trance mediums, they have handlers that no one gets near them to touch them because it can actually damage the body. I mean,
Yeah.
Have you heard that before too?
Yeah, that's very well known. Of course, skeptics used to say, "Well, that's because it's cloth, and we can prove it." Um, the most excessive case, and it has happened a few times, would be Helen Duncan. Um,
Mhm.
and the reason that came about, a ship went down, and a young sailor came through 3 hours later. And he appeared at the seance, spoke to his mum. She was so excited that she went to tell people. Now, this was wartime.
Yes.
Mm, we'll talk about Churchill later on, but Churchill was in the position of there's a spy, somebody's spoken about this ship because only six in the cabinet
Oh,
knew.
oh my gosh.
So they sent the police round, and they did
Okay.
the three things you never do. They broke in, they turned the light on, and one of the detectives grabbed her.
That
Now,
was the story. I do remember that. Lisa Williams was telling what happened? Wasn't she damaged by it?
she had excessive burns across her stomach. It also burns the internal organs. She actually died 14 days later.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, and one of the things that happened was um, uh, dirt and dust and things that were in the room ended up in her stomach. Now,
Hmm.
the person that did the autopsy actually asked her husband, is she on some kind of strange diet? Because there were cigarette butt ends and different bits and pieces. Um,
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
so it killed her, and some mediums have been killed. Some have been very, very badly burnt. It's like 3-degree burns. Um,
What do you think I didn't realize it was the burns, but what is it? So the ectoplasm, it goes out. I know it can it's just something that mediums have, some
um,
more than others, right?
yeah, everybody has it. So sometimes if there's a séance, it will also be drawn from the sitters, but mediums
Oh,
have
okay.
a huge excess of it. Yeah.
Okay. Why is that? Because they work with spirit?
It's not because they work with spirit; they work with spirit because of it. Most of them, so they've incarnated as we all have for specific jobs, and they need that excess. Uh,
That's that's our job. Great. So we were given extra ectoplasm. Wow, that sounds like a cool trick. I'll have to try later on. No, okay, I got it. Okay, I
yeah,
got it. So
yeah.
when it retracts back so quickly, what's happening? Why does it damage the body? I'm just curious.
It burns and disrupts the body, but if you can imagine a huge elastic band that snaps back, and
Mm,
of course it returns to the body
mhm.
inside where it came from,
Okay.
and yeah, can cause a lot of
I got
damage.
it. So the process is just you can't interrupt the process. So as
Yeah,
this voice box is being formed to
yeah.
speak through, you can't see it. It's etheric, but it's where is it when you were in that room with Leslie Flint? Where did you perceive the voice coming from? Is his mouth taped? Is it come? It's not coming out of his
Mm.
mouth.
No, Leslie was awake. He was speaking as well. But if I can say that Leslie was in one corner, and then almost directly opposite me, it was 6 or 7 inches below the ceiling. So it's in a completely different location. The full official name of it is Independent Direct Voice. So some people would get direct voice; it's very close to them, but with Leslie, it was independent. So it was, as I say, between 5 and 10 feet away from him. Um,
Wow. So independent direct voice.
yeah.
And so this is even more of an unusual phenomenon because it's not first of all, it's not coming out of the me it would be unusual enough if it
Mm,
actually if the medium moved their mouth and it
mm,
was not their voice, which that's also a phenomenon. You could have a medium
yeah.
and sound like the can manipulate this to sound like that spirit, but this is he's talking, hey, how's it going, in his voice, but
Yeah.
across the room from the ceiling is a invisible voice that's very clear.
Very clear.
This is amazing.
Yeah. And, some people that have independent voice, it's literally 2 or 3 feet away. So it's in the proximity of the medium, but with Leslie, it wasn't. It was quite some distance.
Well, and that's probably his ability, right? Because of his ability.
Very, very talented. I would say that Leslie still is the best independent voice medium that ever was. There are some very talented ones. It is quite rare, but there are some talented ones, but not up to that standard. In fact, when before Leslie passed, I saw him in '93. Leslie passed in '94. Leslie
Mhm.
was physically told, when you go, there will not be this standard again. And he was told that
Mm.
by spirit.
Well, is there anyone living that you know that does this even close?
There are a couple. Voices appear through a gentleman called Kai Mugger, a German medium, excellent medium. So that sometimes happens with him, although he is more of a traditional physical medium. And when you go, you can see spirit people form and walk about.
Mm.
I've witnessed physical mediumship quite a few times. Quite a few times.
Can you separate before we get more in depth? Because some people have knowledge of this or partial knowledge. Uh, the difference between quickly maybe psychic medium and then medium, mental medium, evidential, and physical. Just quick.
Yeah, a psychic medium is a term that's used. There is a big difference between psychics and mediums. Basically, a psychic picks up the energy of objects and the person and makes that connection. And with a medium, the source is spirit itself.
Mhm.
Mental mediums get that information mentally and can express it verbally, the messages that they get. What was the other medium? Sorry, I lost my.
Oh, okay, sorry. You're doing great. This is perfect. Yeah, and the way I understand psychics, it's just mainly dealing with this world, this 3D
Yeah,
world, whereas we're dealing with the next level spirit people.
absolutely.
And then evidential medium versus a regular medium, which we both are. And to me,
Yeah.
it's just a standard. But go
It
ahead.
is. The whole reason there is connection from spirit world to us is basically to say, don't worry about dying. It's not painful. We survived, and so will you. Um, so mediumship, you can give messages. The most important thing is that it's evidence based, and that tends to need a higher form of mediumship, a better connection, because and I don't mean to be dismissive of people. Anyone can say your mum's here; she tells you she loves you.
Right.
That may well be correct. There's
Yeah.
no evidence with that. So to say,
Right.
your mum hated the colour red, but her auntie once gave her a red handbag, and
Mm.
yes, I get that. That is evidence,
I agree. I
and
agree.
that's
And
how it
usually,
should.
the more obscure, the better.
Absolutely, the oddest things, and sometimes it's only what that person would know. You
Yeah.
know, for example, you say, "Well, you were in a room last night on your own, and a picture fell off the wall, and she told nobody." That's
Mm,
evidence because
yeah.
you know,
Who
yeah,
would know? Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
And then physical mediumship.
Physical mediumship generally is a higher form of standard. It tends to be more evidential. For
Mhm.
example, if a loved one comes through, um, not only would you know by their expression, the way they talk, what they would talk about, you get a sense of them physically being there. And for example, someone may have the habit of just stroking the cheek with their finger like that. And if spirit come forward and say hello, and you recognize it, and they touch your cheek physically in the room,
Mhm.
that's fantastic evidence.
Yeah.
So physical mediumship, again, there are layers that are different, but it tends to be that kind of thing.
Got it. And also, physical mediumship. So it's just the ability, again, the ectoplasm, like this, is another phenomenon, but
Mm.
things can move in the room. Like voices can appear, things can
Yeah.
move, sounds,
Yeah,
smell.
absolutely. Yeah, sometimes you'll get raps and they can make you jump. They can be very loud. One of the things that spirit do to kind of break up the energy when it's finishing is they will move the medium from the tent, or a wooden box if it's constructed, and they will physically pick them up and they drop them in the center of the room. Now, the medium's always tested, all the binds and the ropes, whatever holding them, they're always tested, verified. And of course, they're kind of locked in this cabinet. So, how does that person, who may be very heavy, be lifted out on a chair and dropped? Sometimes the jacket or a shirt they're wearing is reversed. Spirit have
I've
dematerialized it,
heard that. That's
turned it round,
crazy.
and rematerialized it. And it's just kind of a little sense of humor, a little joke. That's funny, isn't it? His trousers are on backwards, for example, or something like that. Although they tend not to wear trousers, just light clothing. But they do that to break up. And for people that it's their first experience, to feel that thud and then realize he's been lifted out, sometimes 10 foot and dropped in the middle of the room. It's quite
Wow.
something. Mm.
Wow. What energy would it take to do that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's fantastic. I went to a place once to experience table wrapping, and long story short, this was a big oak table. It was about 4 inches thick, about 10 foot long, and this thing, we had our hands on the top. This thing was floating around the room. I mean, it was just, it would take 5 or 6 men to try and lift it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No, so this is all part of physical mediumship. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that because it seems kind of frightening because it's physical, but
Mm.
this is another way they show us life goes on.
Absolutely. I suppose, in a sense, it's there to confound. So if you don't believe in it and you think, how did this solid oak table fly around the room? There's only 5 of us here. It makes you question. And when you
Yeah.
question, you research and then you learn the truth.
Which is what you did. So,
Yeah.
so is that your voice? Are you doing that?
No, that's my partner. She's talking too loud and going downstairs with the dog.
I was like, wow, that's very impressive. What a
Yeah, I
great
did it quite
example
that,
of
shouldn't
great
I?
voice.
Oh, no. Yeah, Samantha's just come through and she brought the dog. Yeah.
I was like, wow. Oh gosh, that's funny. Well, so now when you went to this and you saw this, how did it change you as a medium? Did it just notch your expectations way up?
Um, it did in some way. To witness that really reinforces that what we do is real. The talent, whatever I have, is real. So it gives you a lot of confidence, but it shows you what spirit can do. It's
Wow.
absolutely amazing. Sometimes when a seance starts, you'll get raps or knocks,
Hmm.
um, and they can be very, very loud. I went to see a medium, um, and his guide is about 7 foot tall. He's huge. His name's William, and I was sitting on a chair with my back to the wall. And what William did was come up. Again, you can't reach out and touch because that destroys the energy. But he said, "Can I touch you?" So I said, "Fantastic." And he put his thumb on my ear, and as he put his hand over, the middle finger touched the opposite ear. So his hands are huge. The medium himself is quite a small gentleman. Um, so that was an experience that blew me
Yeah.
away.
Why? Really? Did you just
Mm.
make himself bigger?
No, William was very odd. He must have been about 7 foot tall. That was his size. The wonderful thing, you could actually feel the floorboards creak as he walked around speaking to people.
Wow.
And when he spoke to you, he had such a deep chest that you could physically feel the vibration in his chest as he spoke to you. He had a deep voice. Amazing stuff. Amazing.
Wow. And so, wow, that just blows my mind. I've got to see
Mm,
this. I've got to see this in action. I've seen a lot of things. I've
mm.
seen transfiguration. I've seen
Yeah.
lots of, trance. So, and I have seen, the ectoplasm, but I have not seen this one. This sounds amazing. So now what was this the catalyst meeting with Flint to write the book? How did that unfold? The voice of spirit.
Yeah, well, I figured out that I had never heard of it, um, and I wanted to tell people about it. I wanted to. It wasn't a new thing. I wanted to announce this new thing for me to people to let them know. Um, and the amazing thing is, Leslie had recorded over 6,000 different recordings, a massive archive,
Mm.
and I thought people deserved to hear it. So from that from that day, I've campaigned, I've advertised Leslie, um, and one thing that surprised me, there were quite a few mediums that hadn't heard of him, and the public hasn't. And it was meant to be recordings free for the public, to get out there, and so few have physically heard of it. So I just thought everyone deserves a chance to hear this. So that's what I did. It was sometime later because from speaking with Mickey, I hadn't realised at that point I was going to be so involved. And in 2006, Spirit came to me and they said, "You need to get this book together, contact Leslie, and go from there." So Spirit actually, because he passed in 1994, so in 2006, I started to get the book together.
Do you mind sharing some of what Mickey told you? Did he give you any kind of heads up? I know he was whispering
Yeah,
and couldn't say a lot, like it was a big secret. Maybe
yeah.
this was it. You had to find it out.
Yeah, that's how it was. We all know that spirit are not allowed to influence our will, to take away free will. So if Mickey had said to me, "This is what you're going to do, crack on," I would probably have started, within a few weeks, and the timing wouldn't have been right. So
Okay.
it had to be kept secret. I think that amazes people actually, that they think, with us being mediums, that we know everything, and we're not surprised. But obviously, things are kept from us as well. So, and I hadn't
Right.
really the two. I just thought, well, this is a good idea. I know Leslie's behind this. I'm being asked, and I thought I'd take up the challenge. But the full enormity of it hadn't really, um, you know, reached me until many years later.
Well, and I just want to. This is really cool because it's personal, and I think people don't realize it's not like we go as a medium. We're in session now. We're going to start mediums. Generally, spirit flows through them a lot. They have conversations. They know who you are. They know who I am, who you are. Before you do a session, they know the other people. They check you out, and the fact that you were there to me was arranged, and that Mickey knew who you were before you even got there. They knew all this. And
Yeah,
and Mickey, I've got a picture of him. This is his
yeah,
guide.
yeah. He passed over in Bethnal Green. He was actually run over by a truck. And so he tends to appear. He's had many incarnations, like we always have, but he chose that one because children bring a lot of laughter and joy. And
Yeah.
so he chose that particular incarnation, to be, Leslie's guide. But yeah, lovely little boy, very very fast, very intelligent, uh, and um, amazing knowledge.
Well, and I think that that's interesting what you said, that he chose to be a child. In reality, these people that help out like this are master teachers at some level. So just because they're a kid does not mean they're a kid. That's just the form that they decide to work with. Maybe it could be female, could be a child, to keep it lighter, maybe, or sometimes
Yeah.
it might be a male to give that, that masculine strength. So, uh, that doesn't mean it's just a child. It could be, there's so much more happening there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, he could have chosen from lots of incarnations, but he chose to show himself like that. You'll find in physical seances there are always children.
Why
Uh,
is that? I've noticed that. Why
they
why
bring
is
that
that
particular energy, and they keep things light. You also have Christmas seances, and you bring, for example, toys, and they'll play with them, and you'll see them moving around the room. People put lights on them or glowing tape, and you can see these things flying around the room. And to hear children banging drums and just laughing, and it's it's incredible. I'm getting carried away. I'm sort of doing.
Wow. No, no, no. I definitely have heard of that phenomenon. I was just thinking in my head, gee, has anyone ever done anything like that online?
Uh,
Why not? Spirit can do anything.
no, it
Spirit
tends.
can do anything, though.
Well, they can. I mean, there are new energies now. So ectoplasm is kind of old school and the old energy. Um, you can't show it in light, perhaps red light, but they have to be prepared for that. But there are new energies now that work through mediums and also for physical. So it happens. It can happen in daylight now, as Leslie used, and again, that's phenomenal to see, and I've been blessed with that.
Now, so the why was it traditionally done in the dark, just so they could concentrate and to
Well,
see the ectoplasm?
Yeah, it actually comes through the Victorian era. So when physical mediumship started, it was done in the light. You would have tribes in Africa that would have open air meetings, and their ancestors would form and talk. Um, During the Victorian period, because there was no entertainment as such, I mean, you would have to be very rich to have what they would call a lantern to show film slides.
Mm, mm.
Um, so it kind of started in the dark because it was parlor games, it was entertainment. So mediums would go round, but there weren't enough mediums, and this allowed the fraudsters in because it was in the dark, and they would perform those, and that's where we get this idea of it's always in the dark, could be fraudulent, but the restrictions are very solid, before and after. So,
Okay, so it's just different now. So we're the whole aspect of physical mediumship is becoming, I guess, more modernized.
absolutely. I'm in touch with a wonderful physical medium, um, and they do readings, and people will phone them. They're very, very booked up, and they can only sustain 2 or 3 a day. But then usually they can do a week, and then usually have to rest for a while. Um, and so it takes place as a phone call, but the voices appear in midair again and chat back. But this is not only is this in light, but this is in her garden.
Okay, okay, let's go back. This is crazy. Okay, you're blowing my mind. Again, you always do this. Okay, this is crazy, crazy good. So, okay, so someone has a reading.
Yeah,
The medium calls them, they pick up the phone,
yeah.
and the voice
The
does not,
phones,
and the spirit person does not come through the phone. That's just the medium saying, "Hey, how's it going?"
yeah,
But they respond to them somewhere out in their room or
yeah. So
outside.
they'll put the phone down, and the medium's in the garden, and the voices will come through. Sometimes there are pianos playing, all kinds of things, but the voices will come through and be picked up by the person on the end of the phone, and they'll have a conversation.
That is amazing. You know what? This is a whole new level of what I want to try
I know.
because,
We've got
you
the
know,
time, but
just when you think you've done, I mean, I thought doing the box and, oh, let's pick a name and, oh, you're it. Wow, that's cool. This is like, forget that. This is way better. Really. So you can be out in the garden. This is, this is the whole thing. We are spirit. And that just makes us realize what can we do as a spirit person, right? We
yeah,
really limit ourselves. So that's amazing. Okay, so maybe do you think this is a good time to give a couple examples of what this sounds like? You could explain what people
absolutely.
are listening to. Now you've got a lot of stuff. We're going to get more into the book, because this is all about your research and your passion. This is truly, I mean, an act of passion and a calling to do this
Yeah,
about Leslie Flint and this phenomenon. So this isn't just a book. You guys need to get this. If you're interested in this topic of mediumship, this is very advanced stuff, but you need to get this. So here's your book right here.
yes.
Leslie Flint transcript. And you've got like what, 25 or so recordings in
24
there.
recordings on there. Yeah,
24 for
with the
free.
transcripts.
With the transcripts. Okay, so it's all free, but we're just going to give you, now this is not in Leo's book. Okay, Leo's book is much more extensive. I've got 4 examples. And then at the end of this, you're going to see them. If you wait to the end in the credits, you're going to have the full, they're all 10 minutes each, or I may repost it, but you will see the full, I'll put it somewhere. But if you want to get the 25 recordings of the transcript, what Spirit said, there are many different ones, and I'll have you cover that. You need to get the book because this is just a tiny sample. So the first one is going to be Valentino. Did you want to set up, or you just play a few minutes?
Yeah, just go and play it. Yeah,
Okay, so we'll just you can make a comment afterwards. This one is Valentino. Although I did read that Leslie Flint was a big fan of Valentino. I don't know if that's just,
absolutely.
and he had a big archive of his work. So we'll go ahead and play this now for a couple minutes.
This sound recorded on August the 23rd, 1962. Medium Leslie Flint. Hello. 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 And how are you? Good. I'm very happy to come here today. I do not know how I can express myself in words as clearly as I would wish, but I just want you to know that I am very, very grateful for everything and everyone's thoughts today and every day, and that I shall be here today, especially this evening when you have your program. But, as I have told you before, the films as such do not interest me very much, but because they interest all of you and because you have such affection for them, I naturally, I am very happy to be here, but I'm more interested in people and in perhaps being able to help through people to bring knowledge and truth and realization of the important things to all who listen. I don't know quite how to say certain things to you because words in themselves are very poor things where one has so much to say that comes from the heart. Words cannot convey what I feel today and every day. I know that everything that you do is because of your remembrance and love. It is very difficult. It makes me feel very humbled to think that so many people still remember and still have regard and affection for me and my efforts. But I realize that what is important is the far-reaching effect of my work, and that those, at least some, were able to appreciate my desire to reach them deep down inside, not just on the surface. Oh, always, when I was on your side in my work particularly, I wanted to do things that were sincere, things that were true, things that were of life, to make people realize more if they could the oneness of humanity, to try if I could to make people see truth, to break down barriers between nations and people of creeds, all the things that held them apart. But just one of the great beauties of the Arabic is that we could reach everybody, no matter whether they were educated or uneducated, whether they could read or not. It made little or no difference. And it didn't matter if they were of this country or that, or of this religion or that. That is why my films was important to me. That is why I wanted to play this sort of part, so that I could reach people and make them think, make them feel, and to express the deeper emotions of humanity, to make them see the futility of war.
Wow. Did you notice his voice, how excited he got when he
Yeah,
was like, but my real purpose is the people and letting them know, and then you can't reach everybody. It's like he started getting excited in his voice.
absolutely. And I that was recorded some 30 odd years after his death. And again, I think what's really interesting is the clarity. He could have been in the room speaking when he was alive.
Wow.
It's that same clarity. And it's an amazing gift that Leslie had.
So people listening, this is a voice not coming out of the medium's mouth, beside the medium somewhere in the room. And this is just a lot of witnesses, and this is amazing, because not only is it clear, this makes EVPs look like tricycles. This is oh, you know what? A scooter board. We're not even, forget a tricycle. And this is like a bullet train. This is amazing. That there's a heart. You could feel the message, though. Like, it's about touching people with the heart. He was talking about his career, and his goal was to touch as many people as he could on a personal level. And I was going, how many people could feel that? That they're doing that too, right? Isn't that everybody's job to kind of do that in some way? I thought it was amazing.
Absolutely. And the thing is, you get a real feel for the personality, and that's what's different between, I've got Rudolph Valentino here. He says hi. Your grandmother, used to clean his apartment. To hear the person, and of course you get a sense of their physicality there as well, because the energy's there in the room.
Well, I did. You could feel it. You could feel the presence, and it was, and the intention and the personality. It was just amazing, and it's so. To me, these are so. There's so many, but it's profound, the wisdom they're passing along, that I feel like this is just sacred. Some of the things they're telling us, that we need to really take heed, take some advice, because they're giving us advice about their life and what that life meant and what they learned. And it's just amazing. So the next one I have is Gandhi. No setup for Gandhi. Everybody knows Gandhi is. So, he should have an accent on this a little bit. So here we go.
To come here to speak to you.
Yes?
How do you do?
How do you do?
It is great pleasure for me to come here and talk with you. I hope you can understand that which I say.
Yes?
Recently, you were discussing me, and in consequence, it gives me a very great pleasure to come and talk to you.
Yes?
My name is Gandhi.
I beg your pardon?
I am Gandhi.
I'm sorry, I
I am Gandhi.
Gandhi? Okay, well, you are very pleased you've come. Very pleased.
I listen to conversation with your friends,
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Con and Shaw.
Oh, yes.
They are very interested in my
I know.
country.
I know that.
I was very interested in
Yes.
them because they have such desire to assist the people of your world to greater knowledge and greater realization and understanding of God's purpose for His children.
Yes.
You also have similar belief, similar interest.
Yes.
In consequence, it gives to me great happiness to be able to speak to you today on this point. I understand how anxious you are to serve God, to serve the children of the earth, to bring to them enlightenment concerning these truths which are universal.
Yes.
We are conscious on this side of the great need for realization of God's will and purpose, and you are the disciples, like Mr. and Mrs. Conan Shaw. You are disciples inasmuch that you strive to infiltrate into the minds of the people of earth these truths which are the foundation of all religions. There are too many religions in the world which bring great confusion and often great distress to the lives of humanity. There are many barriers that have been created by man's foolishness and ignorance because of his willfulness and his desire for personal position, personal and also national pride, until man realizes they are all of the one family. That
I'll leave it at we're all at one family. Is that not the almost exact message that applies now?
Yes.
Oh my God.
In a sense, it's sad because it indicates really we haven't come very far at all. You know,
I suppose I'm like, okay, we really kind of set back and we really haven't come that far. So, yeah, I know because he's saying that religion aside, this and that, that we're one big family and that we need to have this greater self realization. I mean, and what's amazing is that it's like, it has little dictions in his words. That's one thing that's interesting about spirit, and spirit can be a signature. They can be a hug. It could be a touch, it could be the way they touch you, like,
yes.
a squeeze but their inflection of their voice, like, well, you ever do the medium thing? You start talking like the person, oh, you're doing the inflection they used to do. He had the inflection in there.
Yeah, absolutely. For my book, I actually had voice of Winston Churchill tested, and scientifically, and again, that's amazing.
And it was Churchill.
Yeah.
I mean, and you've got to hear this. The Churchill is phenomenal. I mean, it sounds just like something you would hear on broadcast TV, and it is through the medium Leslie Flint. It's all on Leo's book, and he explains everything. He's got the recording of the transcript. I mean, we can learn from these people because it's not just. When I first heard of this phenomenon, and we were talking about, I thought, well, why would they just sit there and talk? But he doesn't. They're imparting knowledge, sharing, teaching us. Out of love.
Absolutely, and this was one of the reasons that these things were arranged by spirit, and what was arranged was quite rare. Leslie and people in the sitting generally wouldn't have known people like Churchill. So there was kind of a special dispensation, if you like, to get various people together to come through. I love them all, but some of my favourites are just the ordinary folk, if that's not insulting to them. You know, the man in the street and that beautiful stories.
Well, you know, when a lot of people that want to do past life, they're expecting to be a Cleopatra or something. And honestly, you
Mm.
may just be a simple farm girl. I mean, it just,
Mm.
you know, or someone that just was very busy as a maybe a servant in one life and wasn't really noticed, but was an integral part of that time. So we all are part of the whole. We're all important. And I know a lot of people sometimes don't feel like they are, but you know, it takes all of us working together. I mean, if we were all cooks in the kitchen, you know, then who's going to sew the
So
clothes for us to wear or harvest the food? I mean, we got to do different things.
yeah.
So let me run to Confucius here and let me run over to here. And I think I told you he's come through in a meditation before in a dream. And he comes through a bit sarcastic. But see, I didn't know he was like that. But then when I played this and looked him up, I think he's got like a little kind of dry sense of humor. I don't know. What do you think? I'll let you all decide. Here we go.
Listen to your conversation, and it is with great pleasure
Very nice.
that I and other souls here come to communicate with you. But I suppose it is quite a fact known to you that we on this side do not find it very simple to describe many things which are common occurrence, natural surrounding to us. To explain this thing in an earthly term, language, though not exactly an impossibility, is certainly a very confusing and very difficult. Though there are many aspects of our life which are in some ways very much like the earth. When we refer to those conditions of existence in our plane, we are referring to a condition of life which is enjoyed chiefly by people who have only recently left your world, and therefore people whose mentality is such that they have not completely shed themselves of material thought and condition. They have, in other words, not made very much progress, and in consequence they have found an environment which they themselves are mentally tuned into or adjusted to by their earthly thoughts.
Okay, I'll leave it there. See, he's a little look. He seems it's fine with me. He's a master. It's all good. But hey, like there's different kinds of people like us, right? There's all kinds of people. Some
Yeah.
people go to mediums that are kind of a hard ass, you know, and some people want it soft and sweet. I'm kind of in the middle. But he's kind of direct because, oh, these people
Yeah.
have hardened lives and they're a product of their hardened lives, and he's just real matter of fact about stuff, isn't he?
Yeah, very much. And his life wouldn't have been great comparable to what we would recognise as modern standards. You know, there may have been times when he was actually very short of food, for example, or certain types of food. One of the interesting things there is that he repeats something that you tend to find spirits saying, and it's of great concern for them. And it's very topical now. You know, war is created because it's created from fear.
Yes.
You know, and it's very interesting. There are recordings where people from not only ancient civilizations but lost languages that have come through, and they've been given to historians who have tried to trace down and decode the language, and some of that has happened. The language of Aramaic, which Jesus spoke, people have come through speaking Aramaic.
I have.
Yeah.
I've actually done that when in prayer and I was in ecstasy. This was like, I don't know, about a year and a half ago, 2 years. And I had the recording and I put the message, it was 30 minutes channeled. I was totally don't remember what it was. It was about flowers and people. And anyway, they had it transcribed and it was stuff out of the Bible. Crazy. I know, isn't that cool?
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
cool. Yeah.
And again, how can that be faked? You've got to go back, you've got to discover the language, and then, there's not many people around, perhaps from scientists and historians, although it was in a film, wasn't it, with, I forget his name now, but it was
Mel Gibson one.
Mel Gibson.
The Mel Gibson movie, yeah.
Yeah. So someone, part of the film was it was in Aramaic, but the knowledge to have that.
Oh yeah, I didn't know. I just, I thought it was just tongues. I didn't know. I just whatever. I was just didn't even know, and I didn't know someone would take that and do something with it. It actually kind of embarrassed me a little bit, and then they became a stalker, and then I had to change. They're like, she can do this, and I was like, oh my god, this is so horrible. But anyhow, so the last one is St. Francis, and then we're going to go back to your book. We're going to tell people about your book and about what you're up to. So we'll just give them a little bit. This was my favorite one. Now, this is not in Leo's book. Okay, you got to get the really cool ones. He's going to tell you in just a minute some of the recordings, some of the just amazing sacred wisdom that's in there, and these are things that, for those of you and the people, I gotta say, the people that watch my channel are extremely highly spiritually educated and attuned, and they're not if you're a beginner, cool, you're welcome here. And look, hey, sometimes you just jump in the middle and you figure it out. That's great, but this is something you can really dive into and really study, because these are things that we can learn in our own life. These are spiritual truths. Absolutely. So we'll play a little bit of St. Francis, which it just touched my soul, this particular one. I thought it was beautiful.
The following seance was recorded on February 18th, 1963. Medium, Leslie Flint. Sitter, Rose Crete. Communicator, St. Francis of Assisi.
This sound was recorded on the 18th of February, 1963. Medium, Leslie Flint.
I think that's Francis again.
Possibly. It is I, Francis.
Ah, yes, Francis, this is wonderful.
No doubt, my child.
Yes.
You are wondering why it is that I come now so often to you.
Yes. I am wondering, Francis, because I've been told that you don't very often come down to the earth.
I seldom manifest in a personal sense. For centuries of earthly time, it is true, I have manifested my love and my power to benefit mankind in any possible way that I could. But latterly, as you term your earthly time, I have been drawn more closely to the earth, because I feel the needs of the earth are many. Possibly at this time greater is the need, and in consequence, greater is my desire to serve. You may wonder why it should be that I should be particularly drawn here,
Yes.
and perhaps to yourself in particular. I would like, if I may, to clarify this situation
Yes.
which has arisen.
Yes, please.
Because in your own mind, I have no doubt, you are somewhat, if not disturbed, puzzled,
Yes.
and full of the desire for explanation.
Yes, please.
I do not come merely to give to you my love, my power, and the healing. I come because I know that through the manifestation of this instrument's powers, I may be able to reach many peoples, if not now, at some later time. I come because I know that you have such faith, such trust, and such a desire to see the power of the instrument I used in such a way that the work of the Spirit may be in consequence forwarded. In other words, child, though it is my natural inclination and desire to serve and to help you, through you I may reach many peoples. For by your love and your patience and your understanding, you help to create an atmosphere and condition that is conducive, not only for my return through this instrument, but conducive in such a way that I may be enabled to speak to many people. I do not have to tell you these things which in some sense must be apparent, that all we on this side of life who have progressed not only by our own efforts and our own sacrifices. Not only have we progressed through all our own experiences, possibly in many lives when on earth, but we have become ennobled, we have become spiritually wise, we have become spiritually enlarged by the ministry and the efforts and the sacrifices of others. For do we not all live by one another? Do we not, by sharing each other's sorrows and experiences, do we not by these things learn, and by these things grow? And when we have forgotten ourselves in true service, when we have, as it were, become one with others, then truly have we started on the road of spiritual progression and have begun to find ourselves in consequence.
Wow, that's
It's
beautiful.
beautiful, isn't it?
It is beautiful. He's a bit slow in the beginning and he's very gentle and asks permission. He said that he doesn't manifest much. Did you notice that? He said he doesn't manifest. He says, I don't do this much. It's been a while. And then he goes on to say, yeah, well, let me explain and please do. And then he's just, again, he just wants to reach more people. It's kind of like he hadn't talked to anyone in a while. And then he goes into it. He goes, these experiences we have, multiple lives, what we learn in the spiritual progression. And he's back to the same message of really a lot of end of years, which is we are one. We are all, we're learning at different rates. We have different things that we're learning, but we're all here together, and there's a plan, but it just goes on and it gets even better. So whoever wants to listen to that, but again, the voices in all of them are so different.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, people used to say, well, he's mimicking people.
No way.
I'm sure, no way. I'm sure we've all heard, of the saying, a ventriloquist or a mimic, man of 1,000 voices.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even if you take away 2,000 or 3,000 from the 6,000, Leslie Flint, if you look at it in that way, was a man of 3,000 voices or 4,000 voices. It just can't be done.
But it's evidential. In people that knew them, the inflection, like you said, you had Churchill tested. They said, no, that's Churchill, scientifically tested. And so there's certain ways that we talk and have patterns. Even if you notice with certain actors, if you notice their popularity, an example, a British American actor, the guy who played Mr. Bean and the Black Hat Adder. Remember that guy?
Yeah,
what's his name? Rowan Atkins. Yeah. And he would look and he would whatever, but that if a medium was bringing him through and looked that way or had a certain way and he would they would know that's him because there was a certain way, and people like that because that's Rowan Atkins, that's why he's popular because, and these, each one, they have personality. You can't, it's almost impossible. I mean, you might get someone really studied at one or two, but thousands of these, it's impossible.
Absolutely. And I shall let you into a little secret. There's a gentleman talking at the start, says, gives the date and says, and the medium is Leslie Flint. That is Leslie Flint.
Wow.
And during St. Francis's talk, you hear a man talking and then he sneezes.
Yeah.
At the same time, that's Leslie Flint.
That's nuts. So he's sneezing, talking, and the other guy, St. Francis, is talking, or whoever. This is just the wildest phenomenon. I mean, to me, as a medium, this is really exciting because because it just goes beyond. Well, let's just say it goes beyond our science in this world of what we can understand. It just makes you. It's like a Rubik's Cube you just can't solve. It is beyond. I mean, yeah, we can talk about the mechanics and the ectoplasm, but the fact that it's a coordinated effort. It's like it's kind of like this. When you know this, but a lot of people watching probably don't know this. When a medium has an appointment, the spirit people know that. They know it's Tuesday at 1 p.m., right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes, you get people, for example, I found when working in churches, let's say it's raining outside or someone comes in late, invariably they get the message. And quite often for that person is, it's raining outside, I just want to keep out the rain, I'll walk in. So they think it's purely accidental. But you and I know Spirit would have organised that maybe months ahead. So we just think, I've got a brolly, I'll just nip in here, and you get a message and go, my God, what a coincidence. Nothing of the sort.
It was funny. I had a shaman friend, and I was like, okay, I won't say anything. But she would say, there's no way that Spirit knows everything we're thinking and what we're doing. I'm like, yeah, they do, because they tell me the thoughts of people that are their relatives. They tell me, they're like, you're thinking about this. Like, yeah, why? Well, your aunt said so. I mean, yeah, they can't help it because they're spirit form, but they don't use it against it. They use it to better understand us, to help us in our journey. I've had many other people that are not my guides that are thankful because I've done things for other people in the spirit world. that intercede for me. I had one military guy that said, Do you need any help? Are you okay? And I thought it was the sweetest, cutest thing. I mean, he was spirit. And I go, oh, thank you. I'm good. But I really appreciate that. I said, okay, I'm just checking. And I was like, so yeah, they know what's going on. They had this appointment. They knew to show up for Leslie Flint. I mean, I'm telling you, this is big stuff. This is universal life, afterlife. This is definitely says that life goes on, and it makes almost this life look really small in comparison.
Well, you know,
Like a moment of time, just like
yeah, I'm a big fan and have an affinity with Jimi Hendrix, and something that he wrote was, and this was very shortly before his death, actually, which he predicted himself, and he says, "Life is just the blink of an eye." So if you think about, you know, yes, we could live to 100. You know, someone's died at 120. Yeah, 100. But what is that absolute fraction in eternity? I mean, you just can't count it. You know, that's it. It's gone. Um, you know, we talk about eternity and we are eternal. We have no real conception of what eternity is. You know, we'll still be in some form, possibly human, possibly something else. In, you know, 500 million years' time, we still exist.
well, and I think that's the part that when people say we are God, we are creation, however, religion, non-religion, whatever that is, the fact is we keep being created. We can't creation of any kind can't die. Now Jesus gives me flowers a lot. He goes, see the flowers every year they come back. He said, do you see that? Every year they come back. He said, this is the way of things. So why would we, we can't really be destroyed. So, we're there's a change.
Yeah.
There's a change, but we're still here. It just keeps going on. This is amazing proof of the afterlife. So tell us a little bit more about the book, what people can expect. And then I want you to tell them about these classes that you're taking, that you're teaching too.
Okay, so the book was inspired because it's transcripts, and the reason that there are transcripts is because sometimes the accents, especially maybe the English, is quite difficult to understand. There is a slave girl called Bessie in there. I just can't get the accent at all. So the transcripts are there to read and have a better understanding of what you hear. And Spirit just said to me, we need the recordings and we need those out. So in a sense, that's a bonus. There's a great variety of different people, and sometimes people have an illusion, excuse me, an illusion that, if I've got money, I've got power, then when I get over there, I'm going to have that. And there's a very short transcript and recording of Queen Victoria. And the interesting thing is she's come through before. So Betty Green recognizes her voice and she says, it's Queen Victoria. And she says, I am Victoria, Queen no longer. So the ego is taken out of it.
Wow.
It's,
beautiful.
We're going to take all our wealth. We're going to take our influence, and get over it. Death is a great leveler. Passing over is a great leveler.
No kidding. And there's some people, and I know that everybody knows at least one that you're going, wow, they're really, maybe they're selfish, maybe whatever it is. And you go, when are they going to learn? The person gets, some kind of horrible disease. They bounce back. Nope, they don't learn. The family lives. Nope, they still don't learn. And some people, they're just going to have to, or they're clueless. Like, I don't know. Those people come through all the time. They do learn because everything is transparent, not because it's transparent, but that they see how they were, how they treated others, and they see the whole thing decoded, and they go, wow, I kind of just didn't get it, did I? So you know, those people that we're all frustrated with in life, they're going, everybody, us, them, everybody's going to see the true deal of their entire life exposed in their life review.
Absolutely, and he's quite right. You know, we pass over. We are completely transparent. We can't sort of hide and say, well, you know, I never did that. Everyone can sense it. They can see it. And, you know, for some people, I suppose, depending what they've done, there can be great shame. But when it's exposed and you can't hide it, you need to deal with it. And we do, you know, we've all done things we're ashamed of, and, you know, especially, I suppose, when we're growing up and, you know, we think it's a good idea to steal something from a shop because it's fun, whatever it might be. And, you know, we can't hide that. And the thing is, that's really interesting is we cannot hide it from ourselves. You know, we can't say, I never did that. We have to face it. It's a life review.
It's true. And a lot of people, I mean, some people I've talked to in the years, they said that they didn't like who they were. Well, like in Danny and Brinkley's book, he didn't like who he was. He said he was not a nice person, and he came back and changed that. Robert Barry, who I've interviewed, he said the same thing, came back, changed that. So some people do take advantage, and they do have a second chance. And, you know, long as we're here, we can always shift that. But the one thing that I do know, and tell me what you think about this, Leo, is that whatever we learn spiritually, and that we really put ourselves out there to learn and to know and to really grow spiritually and to try to make the better decisions. See, you know, we're going to make mistakes. We try to make the best decisions. That's the stuff that goes with us. Do you agree? I mean, it's like that kind of just helps us on our journey.
Absolutely, and you know, and we can see the contradictions in our lives. It's all a learning process. You know, none of us here are perfect. We wouldn't be here otherwise. And when we accept that we have faults, you know, it's harder to accept that than to point to other people's faults and go, well, I didn't like him or her because. Yeah, but when others can see that in us and we acknowledge, yeah, you know, maybe I was a bit hard to get along with. You know, immediately we've learned something.
It's true.
And, you know, yeah.
We're all here to learn, and we're going to learn a lot from you by the efforts and the passion you put behind this book. Now, make sure, tell us about the radio show, when they can hear you. And also, I've been on your radio show. It's a lot of fun. You're a lot of fun. And then we have a laugh. And then also about your mediumship training.
Yeah, so the radio show, I've been a radio host now, I think, for approaching 8 years currently, and I love the radio station. It's kcor.com. No, it's not. It's I'm just getting it out.
I have it on below.
kcor.radio.com. And in Las Vegas time, it's from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and it's 7 till 9 Greenwich Mean Time, and that's on a Thursday. And we have lots of lovely guests like yourself with all kinds of interests, and we've had a wonderful trance medium, Sarah Tyler Walters, and Kai Mugo, who I mentioned. So there's that. One thing that I love to do is to teach, and I've taught for over 25 years. And currently that's on Skype, 3:30 Sunday afternoons. And, you know, like you, I just, when someone comes, and sometimes I've had people who are rather skeptical, but like yourself, when they get there and they get it and they get the message, that wonderment, you know, not only is it real, I can do it. It's fantastic to see.
I mean, to me, the mediumship is especially if that's something that indicates to you, or you've been this way a little bit your whole life. So many people don't know what to do with it and put it, you know, on a shelf. But when you embrace it as part of who you are and let spirit, the divine, work through you, it can be really beautiful and really quite an honor. And you're a beautiful medium. And I thank you for your time today and sharing a part of yourself, and also your projects like this book. So everybody buy Leo's book. All the links are below, how to get in touch with him. And thank you so much for your time. You have been so fantastic.
It's my privilege, honest. It's my privilege.
It's mine. You're wonderful. So thank you so much, Leo. Bye.
God bless you. Take care.
Bless
Bye.
you. Take care.
Night to everyone.
Much love to you and everybody watching. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and make comments, and support this channel by becoming a member. Thank you for your continued support.